Klopfanstein on a Hot Seat Media Monday, and I have a very special guest today. Her name is Klee Hood. Klee Hood is running for the Democratic nomination for this 22nd U.S. Congressional District. And Sarah, this is your second time to do this. 2 years ago, you were here. I interviewed you before with Cassandra. Cassandra will join us, I believe, in the second segment of this show. But I'm so glad you're back. And so, Sarah, why do it another time?
I think the real question is why not?
Good question.
Delighted to be here, Ron. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm excited. This should be good. The hot seat gets me a little nervous, but we'll see where
Oh,
we go
don't be
tonight.
nervous. We're friendly. We're a friendly bunch here. We're having a good time. We have Dr. Dust back. This is actually the first time I've had like a show before my show, because usually it's the automated stuff and it's exciting. It's more energetic. It's a happier vibe. So yes, this definitely gives a more pop to the show. So tell us about it. So why Sarah Klee Hood? Why now? Why you? Why Congress?
Sure. So when I was here last time, that was our first go around. We learned a lot. We did really well. But
yes.
Like I said, a lot of lessons learned. So why now? Man alive, we need more folks that have a similar life to many people here in Central New York, that were born and raised here, that understand that this is about increasing our quality of life, our opportunities, whether that's through a better jobs program, a better housing market, really just everything that factors into when folks get home at the end of the day and they're just looking to relax. Would love to be able to offer them the opportunity through good paying jobs, the opportunity to go to a ball game or to go out to a show or whatever it is that they may find fun and extra, but that's a great marker for an increased quality of life. So that's what we're out here doing.
So what are some of the things that you think you can do in Congress to increase that quality of life? How can you help bring more jobs in this area, or help healthcare, bring more healthcare, or help people access it? What are some things that you want to do?
Sure. So a lot of things I want to do are things I already have experience in. So when we talk about, to your point, healthcare, it is a mess. I mean, I served in the military, so I had what you would call a single payer option through TRICARE. I've been in the private sector where I had an employer-based program, and I've been on a public option, which is what we have now through the Air National Guard. And I got to tell you, when you don't have to worry about co-pays, deductibles, network issues, delayed care, the ability to be able to see your provider without delay when you need it, when you want it, that is something that is priceless. And then knowing that vision, dental, and mental health is rolled in, man, that's a winning combination. And that's what I'm going to fight for, because I've had it, I've seen how it works, and I know that it can work.
So would this be like a single payer thing, like Medicare for all type ideas, what you want to go for with this? So.
However you want to call it.
Yeah.
Whatever gets it across that finish line to ensure that all Americans get healthcare coverage that they need, that is quality, accessible, it's affordable, and is treating healthcare as a right.
And some of that is healthcare. It's really some of the right that you're going to fight for. You talk about reproductive healthcare.
Absolutely.
And you have, since this is a Media Monday show, you have a really good piece of media out there, a commercial for TV and internet that kind of speaks to the issue directly. I'm going to try to play it a little bit over the airwaves here. I'll just describe it for people that are listening to it, going to listen to it and not be able to see it. This commercial begins, you're in the car with your husband, and it's kind of like an overcast day. You have an umbrella. It looks a little bit downbeat. You're walking into what looks like a clinic type thing, and you talk about like how you had to make a difficult choice in your life, and how you made what was the right choice for you, and how you want to defend that choice to other people. At the end of it, there's a little bit of a twist at the end. We find out that, you're not at a clinic yourself for your own reproductive health care, but that you're actually there to announce you're going to run for Congress. So what I want to do is I want to play the ad so people can hear the audio, what it is you're saying about this. Then I just want to ask you a little bit about it, like why you think it's effective, why it wasn't effective, why you believe it would be an effective ad for you, and if you've gotten any feedback about this. So I'm going to hit play, and I'm using my husband's phone here, so I think this is going to work. So to set it up, you're getting out of the car, you're walking into what looks like a clinic type thing, and this is your audio.
Sure you don't want me in there?
No, I've got this. When the Supreme Court overturned Roe, I was devastated. And I know about devastation. Because when my husband husband and I were in the Air Force and pregnant, we received devastating news, and I chose abortion care. I'm Sarah Klee Hood. Extreme Republicans will bring a national abortion ban to New York. The question is, what will we choose to do about it? I approve this message because my choice is to fight. And I'm officially running for Kennedy.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about how did your own experiences make you such a passionate advocate for abortion rights?
There's so many emotions going on right now, no matter
Yeah.
how many times I share this with people. So the commercial, as you said, it shows that I was already married. We already had a family started. And one of the reasons that this is such an important topic to be highlighting is because, yes, Roe was overturned, which means that for many women across this country right now, they are not in a position, based on where they live, to access safe and legal abortions, which we know is a fundamental right for women in terms of how they are able to choose their future, choose their freedom, have the ability to recognize that women have the capacity and the fortitude to make their own medical decisions about their lives. And when we start putting in discussions about restrictions or anything else that has to do with the policy around it, this discussion is no longer about the woman and their healthcare provider. It's now bringing a politician's opinion into that medical room, which is where it does not belong. I'm a mom raising 2 young daughters. My grandmother fought this fight, my mother fought this fight, and here I am fighting this fight. My daughters are growing up with less
Rights.
opportunity, rights,
Yeah.
than I did. And I'm pretty mad. I am pretty fired up. I'm not sure what words I'm allowed to say on the radio right now, so I'm gonna keep
Well, man, it's okay.
Well,
Fired
I
up,
just-
yeah.
I want to say it's a burden.
Yes.
It is a burden. It's not any way near an easy decision to make. It's just not.
And it's not.
Was it hard for you to decide to make this commercial and to kind of reenact a bit of that and relive a bit of that in order to make the point? It couldn't have been too easy.
It's not, and I'm still nervous when folks recognize me in the community, but I have to tell you, despite all of that, what we were doing was twofold: acknowledging where we are in the US and that women's rights are being rolled back. That bar none needs to be replaced. We're not second-class citizens here. The other portion of it was bringing the thought or the idea to many folks that have a preconceived notion of who seeks an abortion.
Right.
What kind of woman seeks an abortion? I think that stereotype makes
What kind
it
of
very
woman
easy.
does seek an abortion?
All women, in every stage of their life, every economic class, if you want to, every demographic, because we are the childbearing society, and for many, that may not have been their choice or their freedom, but you know what? Abortion allows women to reclaim control of their future. And that is for our family, when we received devastating news, I had very little control over what Mother Nature did, right? But what I was able to do was do what was best for myself and then my family, and I was in control. And that's where we need to bring it back to, allowing women to have the personal freedom to choose their future.
Do you feel like there's a danger of women in this state actually having those rights curtailed in New York State?
Thankfully, right now, we're okay.
Yeah.
But
And of course, if you are elected, you'll be representing in the country, so you
Yep.
can fight for women's rights 50 states.
and that's what we need.
Yeah.
I'll be darned, we need more women.
What do you
Look
think?
where we are, we need more women.
You know,
Why do you?
can I just
Oh yeah,
jump in
please.
on that
Cassandra
note?
Harris-Locke was going to join the
Yeah,
conversation.
on that note, when I hear about the battles in Ukraine, I hear about the trauma and the war and the devastation in Gaza and Israel, I don't hear any women's voices. I hear no women's voices. If
Good
we
point.
had women in more positions, we would not be having these problems. Women are not going to do that. We will just not do that. We'll find some other kind of way.
What will you do differently as a woman if you're in Congress? Let's say your opponent, John Mannion, or Brandon Williams, the current congressman. What will you do differently than them?
Well, I think the easiest contrast right now is Representative Brandon Williams. He would love to see, and he has stated this, a national abortion ban. And And where we are headed right now, that's what it's looking like. We have young women right here in central New York that are having to redecide where they're going to college, what state is safe for them to plant their and
Wow.
grow into the human that they are. Can you believe that? In a time that should be fundamentally about exploring your opportunities, who you want to be moving into the next phase of your life, and we are restricted because of what state that college may be in. You know, Ron, can I share one really
Of course,
good,
please do.
It was a great
Yes,
story
sure.
because this is the kind of outpour that I've had after the commercial. I was very nervous to let it into the community because
It's
people
embarrassing.
people
And there
are
can be
mean.
pushback too.
Yes,
if you-
people can be very mean. And one of my community members, I'm a town councilor over in DeWitt, she called me and she said, "Thank you for sharing my truth. I haven't
Wow.
been able to share for 60 years."
Wow, that's powerful.
And she's not the only one. She said it the most eloquently.
Yeah.
But women of all ages are carrying this burden, this shadow with them because they are afraid of society's reaction. Where have we gotten to? There's so much work to be done in this one space alone, and I think at the end of the day, we need more elected representatives that have lived the experiences they are fighting for,
Right,
because they
right.
know exactly what the stakes are on the table. And that is why when you want to compare myself against my primary opponent, we're not the same in this capacity by any means.
In what other ways are you different? Would you contrast yourself with your primary opponent, John Mannion?
Sure, I think a lot of it comes down to experience. What I told you is we need leaders that have the experience in the various areas of federal policy or that relate to federal policy so we can make better decisions.
Do you feel like your military experience will add to that too?
Yes, 100%.
Leadership, I would imagine.
Yes, leadership, the ability to make decisions under stress, the ability to come together with people from different backgrounds. The military is like a little melting pot in and of itself. I remember one of the first lessons I learned in the military is if you think of somebody in the military, everybody looks the same, from the hat down to the boots. You're wearing the same exact thing, save your rank and your name tag. You're treated based on what your rank is and then your responsibilities from there. But I remember we were given a specific mission. It was high stress. We had 48 to 72 hours to figure out what our solution was going to be to go up the chain of command. And I'm looking around this table of folks that came from every corner of the U.S., and it didn't matter what their personal beliefs are. They put them aside and they said, "This is the objective. This is the mission we have to complete." And we did it. Why the heck aren't we doing that at the federal level? Our mission is to ensure our communities across the U.S. are safe and provided for, and that our national security in our country is, bar none, the service before self. It is the epitome of what we should be reaching for at the federal government. And we're not doing that. So yes, veteran status as a veteran is, it's almost like it is a perfect stepping stone into federal office, because not only, for example, I managed a federal budget. I was responsible for a team of 140. I have over 3,000 hours
What
of
was your
leadership.
rank and like what branch were you in?
I was a captain in the U.S. Air Force. I served for 6 years. In that time, I had 140 troops. We did air traffic control. We ran the airports. I did federal policy.
That's gotta be a lot of pressure. Air traffic control in the airports.
The most stressful.
That's a very
part of
high
that-
stress job.
It is, and I'll tell you, the most stressful part was because I was the boss. When the boss got in the control tower, and then I had to control, you would see all of the controllers were relaxed, and the moment I stepped up, they crept a little closer to the screen, a little closer to the windows, and they just watched me like a hawk. Because yes, I was qualified as one, but I had a whole bunch of other jobs that I did simultaneously.
Yeah.
But that's actually a really fun parlay, because being able to visually manage aircraft in the sky is similar to what you have to do, and unfortunately right now in Congress, which appears to be more of a circus than it is a legislative body. So being able to manage all of those,
And you can't really drop any of those balls. If it's if each dot is an airplane, you have to be on top of things every moment. So the pressure must be intense.
It is
a high stress job. Yeah.
a very high stress, and I think one part of that is just for air traffic alone is those are souls on board. So it's not just a piece of tin flying across the sky. You have however many passengers are on that plane. But the beauty of it is they are trained, the highest quality professionals. They know their job, they know it well, And if you can make it through the training segments, you have proven that you have the capacity to be able to do that job. So it was a pretty great experience.
So did you bring some of that experience to your role as a council person for the town of DeWitt? You must have some experience bringing people together, solving problems. We have a few minutes before break, so maybe you can start to answer that question. I'm sure we'll pick it up on the other side. And Cassandra also will have some questions about agriculture and
Yeah, but I want to, something you said about young women choosing their college dependent on what state they're going to live in. Because, I have to think that unexperienced young women becoming sexually active for the first time is going to be a higher rate of the necessity for abortion care. And that's that's just kind of like that was my experience, okay, my sad experience, but that's a real issue for young women. This is such a devastatingly serious and problematic circumstance that we're in right now.
And to not be able to make that decision when your life is at stake, or really just when it's your choice, but someone says no, it is, you don't have the right to your body.
So let's take them. We're going to put a line in the sand for today's date, because I really think in 5 to 10 years, those states are going to be crying. Our college enrollment is down. Why aren't we seeing a certain population coming to our state?
Oh man,
they will be seeing the economic impacts of their decision.
You're right.
So I think from now, 5, 7, 10 years down the road, unless we can codify Roe and restore this as a federally mandated law, we will be seeing a very different tune in the Southeast.
Something else I'll ask you about too. I interviewed 2 filmmakers about a month and a half ago who did a documentary about the film 9 to 5, and they made the point that if the ERA had passed, Roe would still be in effect, and women would still have the right to make their healthcare decisions in all 50 states, something that they've lost. So maybe we'll talk a little bit when we come back about your role as a council person in DeWitt, what you brought to that, and maybe how the military experience and how your experiences as a mom are something that helped you informed your work in politics so far and going forward into the future. You're in the hot seat on a Media Monday on 95.5 FM, The Heat. Hi everyone, welcome back to the hot seat on a Media Monday. I'm Ron Klopfanstein, and my guest today is Sarah Klee Hood. Sarah is running for the Democratic nomination for the 22nd Congressional District, which is our district here in Utica and now Syracuse too. And you serve in government in your hometown, DeWitt. You're on the council, and I'm wondering what it is that what about your life or your role as a mother in the military, your work background, what did you bring to that role in government?
Gosh, I think since we've been talking about, women's perspectives, it's a women's perspective. We are very community oriented. I know, at least from my legislating perspective, I'm not just thinking, the idea might spark in my house, but I'm not going to pursue it if it doesn't make sense for everybody or the greater good, right? So I ran for office because I wanted to see sidewalks in our communities.
Tell us about that.
We lived in every corner of the U.S. when we served in the Air Force. And when we moved home, we moved to a road that's really old and narrow. It doesn't have shoulders. It doesn't have sidewalks. And what I found out was it wasn't a community. People were hanging out in their backyards. So I created a really jazzy PowerPoint, and I went to the...
You're good at PowerPoint.
I'm so good at PowerPoints.
That's a good skill.
Until somebody tells me I'm not. I'm gonna own it. I went to the town board and just said, here's my reasoning for why our road specifically needs a sidewalk. I gave opportunities where I drew where it would look like, but we're a trailhead to the Erie Canal, so we have a lot of foot traffic coming down my road. And it wasn't a priority at the time. So I said, okay, and I probably think, ever being a woman, I went back just to make sure what I was thinking wasn't crazy, and I asked hundreds of community members, would you like to see sidewalks here? Is this something that's important to you? It's a big deal. People wanted to see sidewalks, and to that point, I hear sidewalks in Cornhill need a little bit of work too, if anybody's listening.
That's true, yeah. Roads too.
Roads too.
And there's a bumpy ride, yeah.
You're safer walking on the lawns.
I've
Drive
heard.
down the lawns, I would think. Yeah.
So I ran for the open seat and won. We crushed it. Broke County county election records, and we're getting 2 sidewalk programs now that are not on my road, unfortunately. It didn't make fiscal sense, but we're connecting elementary schools to housing developments where parents by the I don't know, dozens were walking kids on the road to get to school every day.
Wow. Now they
So
have a
that's a
sidewalk.
significant win. But I think I entered this right to get sidewalks on my road. The ultimate result is 2 other sidewalk programs because they
Nice.
make more sense.
Yeah.
It's a bigger community that will be affected positively by this. And I think that's what you get when you elect women. They're able to see, hey, there's an opportunity here.
It's a
but
problem, let's solve it.
There's a problem, let's solve it, and let's get to the best solution overall. So it's just that world global view of what we're trying to do. And being a veteran, I ask a lot of questions.
So like when you were first
Yeah.
elected, you had your meeting, and like you were used to how things were done in the military, or like you meet with other people who are also elected too, and they have interests that are different than yours, or opinions that are different than yours. What was it like your first meeting when you were on the council when you brought up your issue?
Oh my gosh, I have to say it was humbling. When you're an outsider looking in, particularly in local government, you get to create these characters, if you will, of who each town board member is.
Yeah.
And I remember being up and equal with them, the youngest elected ever, the only veteran on the floor. I was one of 2 women, now I'm the only woman. And I remember all of those fictitious thoughts I had of who these people were melted away because everybody was there for their own specific reasons. And I learned a lot about, in a different sense, of how you can have, I don't want to say you can have your cake and eat it too, but you may have a cake, the pieces just get divided up differently depending on what's already in motion from something that happened 2 or 3 years ago and it needs to be followed through versus what new legislation is going to affect us. At the local governance level where I have federal policy that comes down. For intents and purposes, the state acts as almost like a middle manager.
Okay.
They shift and divide things around, but implementation is at that low level. It's at the villages and the towns and even potentially a city. So I'm there to implement federal policy, but I don't have the functional means to. I don't have the budget. And so we're handed mandates that we effectively can't really do in any sort of, I guess, responsible time frame, if that makes sense, because we don't have the funds. So that is one thing that I really, really would love to address at the federal level.
So was that like your origin story for the council? Is that this sidewalk that you
Yes.
saw a need, you wanted to fill the need? What is it that made you decide I'm going to run for the U.S. Congress?
Oh God,
Because that is a big step to like say I'm going to do
Yeah.
this and step up and put yourself out there, and to go from like town to federal.
This is your second
deal.
run, though.
Yeah.
Yes,
Second
this
run.
is our second run. But what got me there was obviously Trump had a big impact in just watching the potential of where these highly distinguished roles, how federal government was being eroded by people that were out there for self-interest and grandstanding versus legislating for the people. Life has gotten, over the last 5 years, just from the pandemic onward, it's gotten really challenging. Folks' pocketbooks and wallets are tight.
And their heads too.
That is fair. Social media kind of spins us
my
in
goodness.
whatever opinion we want. We have
And all that isolation during COVID did not
Yeah.
do everyone equally as well. No, some people really did not do well.
and it inundated our healthcare system for folks that didn't even have healthcare. They weren't able to receive the necessary services they need. So it showed a lot, but at the end of the day, gosh, we need to be doing something better for folks of Central New York. I mean, we've got New York City, Washington, D.C., Boston, L.A. We've got our big city hubs. They will always be there. They will always get the support that they need because they simply drive our national economy. But all of our small communities around here, you put them not just outside of Central New York, but I mean, you take all of the small communities around the U.S., and that's the fabric of our country right there. That is where folks are living their daily lives. They are grinding, and that is where local economies come from. We have been so consumed with ensuring that our large cities get their needs met first that we're leaving behind communities like Central New York.
In what ways?
Can I jump in here? Because I don't know what the current situation is, but as I recall, my entire life here in upstate New York, agriculture has been our top producer.
Still our number one export.
Okay, all right, but it's in decline.
Sure is.
It's absolutely in decline. The dairy industry in decline. The crops in decline. And my solution, I have a solution, because one thing is in decline and another thing is rising in temperature and in difficulty and in problem, and that's the environment. And I just see that there's a way that New York State could recover some agricultural prominence, some manufacturing dominance, and begin to be the model for how we get out of this mess. And I believe it's hemp. And I've spoken to you briefly about it. I don't know if you've had any time to really look into it, but hemp has a great growing season that works perfectly well in upstate New York. The ratio of 1 acre of hemp is equal to 5 acres of hardwood tree. We could save our forests. We could restore agriculture in New York State with a cash crop, and then go back into manufacturing. There's so many people. When they were talking about like in the 70s, people were doing well, but not people in retail. People in manufacturing were doing okay.
In the factory jobs,
right?
Yeah.
Factory jobs, okay.
Yeah, right.
And when we can figure this out, because I don't know if you remember, but Erie Street used to be full of factories.
Right.
And there were paper factories. There were fabric
and-
mills, all
yeah,
kinds of things.
right.
And we could come back with an answer and a restoration with hemp.
Do you know off the top of your head what the carbon sequestration of hemp is? Is it good? Do you know, does it take a lot of carbon out of the atmosphere as it grows?
I don't know that, but I do know that hemp does pull toxins out of the soil. And in the use of it as a crop, you're going to be cleaning the toxic waste, because you're not going to be using the hemp as an internal. You're not eating it, so it's all external. It's applications. It's anything in this room could be except for the steel.
Plastics and stuff.
Plastics, wood fiber, even concrete
Clothing
blocks,
and-
clothing,
yeah.
textiles, any kind of textile. And when you have the space that we have to grow, all we have to do is figure out who's going to do what. And I think that the big universities, Syracuse University, Morrisville, the other colleges that are into agriculture ought to be putting their nose to the grindstone to figure out what do we need to do. We could start with toilet paper. We could start with wallpaper. We could start with just regular printer paper. Any kind of paper is a no-brainer.
All these bottles.
All the bottles, and I showed you the if you Google biodegradable hemp plastic, you'll see day 1 and day 90, and it's crumbled down to nothing. And we've got to stop doing this. I mean, we love it. It's convenient.
Oil plastic.
Petroleum
based.
But even personalized bottles. When I was a kid, nobody had walked around with a water bottle. You had a canteen if you had that you got from the
You're in
Army
the
Navy store.
military. You must have a canteen somewhere.
I was always suspicious of my canteen.
Yeah, they were kind of creepy. But anyway,
Right.
But I'm just saying, I think that we really, it's not like just stop using petroleum products. What are we going to do next?
Yeah,
This is the problem.
right.
What do we do next? And how do we do it?
Yeah.
Because there are a couple of hemp manufacturers nationwide, and we need to pick their brains, get whatever the technology is, and start doing it here.
I completely agree. I know a lot of farmers around this district, and this may be the last generation that's holding
Right.
family farmland because
Right.
True. Yeah.
it's gotten too expensive. The
Yes,
crops aren't
they're
yielding.
they're selling
And
off the land.
developers are at their doors. There are some folks that are getting quoted $30,000 an acre because of the location of the farm.
I think that the same harvester for corn can be used for hemp with a little modification. But we really need to do this. We really need to do it.
If we're serious about protecting our number one export out of NY22, then to your point exactly, we need to start looking at alternatives that support the local family farmer, because that is who is bread bread and buttering
Yeah.
our communities. That's how we build local economies.
Then we get something to do for the immigrants that are coming in too. It's a it's a no-brainer. You know, you're going to need more
Revitalize agriculture in New York State.
agricultural workers. Yeah.
And so, as a mom, is the environment particularly important to you because your kids are going to live in this world and their kids, and it's hotter every year. It just is. I mean,
I think the
And
news report.
wilder.
yeah, the intensity
Wilder.
of the weather is increased as well too.
We're expected to have our hottest summer on record this summer.
Somebody told me monkeys are falling out of trees in India. They're dying from
So
the heat.
hot.
Wow.
127 degrees, some crazy numbers like that.
So you must think a lot about the world you're going to leave for your
Mm.
kids.
I don't think I'm alone in that though.
No.
Right.
I can tell you, so my generation that is raising the kids that are in public schools right now, very concerned. But I'll tell you, some of the most dug in folks that are the most concerned are the grandparenting levels. Because they simply
Interesting.
cannot believe that through their lifetime
They've seen this.
they have seen this destruction happening on our planet. So yes, I am very keenly attuned to what we're doing. You both probably already know this if you've been around me long enough, but we have a lot of fresh water here up in
Oh, yeah.
Central New York, a
Yeah.
great resource. But not only that, it's a top 10 globally. So when we talk about climate change or water pollution, we're talking about it right here in Central New York. It's happening, and we don't have proper legislation at the federal level to protect us.
Right.
So if we're going to start seeing, we've already seen some of our supporters from Sedona, Arizona move over,
Yeah.
From Colorado have moved to town simply because
Climate refugees.
Some
Yes.
places will probably just run out of water completely.
they keep drilling deeper and deeper in Arizona.
What would you do if you're in Congress to address this? Like, what kind of legislation could you actually do to turn this around or to help?
So we need bold legislation. I
Yeah.
think but I'm also relatively pragmatic. So I'm looking at the legislation that's already on the table.
Mhm.
We have the Clean Water Act already approved. What it does not help us with is climate change. So
Right.
it recognizes that water can be polluted through farm runoff or corporate runoff. What it doesn't recognize is that our waters can become polluted with harmful algal blooms
Yeah.
as a result of climate change.
Yeah.
So if we are, as many of our lakes were last year, they were closed for weeks, various weeks, because of the harmful algal blooms. They're not great for humans, they're very bad for pets. The lakes were closed, but federal funding wasn't allowed to be accessed for remediation because it wasn't identified as a reason for pollution. So let's go with the low-hanging fruit, and that's updating
Yeah.
the legislation that's already on the table.
Right.
Right.
And then the next one is looking at frameworks such as the Green New Deal, but we need to make that better. Right
Okay.
now, it says these are the goals we need to do, but it doesn't tell us how to do it.
Right.
And that is where I'm finding a lot of federal policy is missing the mark. It's either outdated, it's created with barriers on purpose, as we saw with redlining, or to the Green New Deal's point, it's created by folks that haven't had to implement federal policy before, so they're not sure what pieces are missing. And what we're missing from that is understanding how do we get to those goals that we want? How do we actually implement the policy? So I would love to go in there and be like, this one isn't realistic based on our time constraints that we have. This one isn't realistic right now based on where technology is. But if we modify these things, reconfigure them, we can get to this new goal. And it's just bringing that practical experience that I've had over my career of in environmental policy. I worked there because I was so incredibly concerned with where this place was going. I grew up camping and fishing and hiking. My dad's a conservationalist, and it's
And those are the very lakes that are like having trouble and they can't
Exactly.
get the help from the federal
I
government. So,
want to jump in
right.
here too and say that fracking also wrecks water, but geothermal
Yes.
does not. Geothermal makes the use of our mantle layer in the on the planet to heat and cool, whereas fracking, well,
It's
you know,
very helpful
it's
to
very
do.
helpful. I'm really glad that they kept it out of New York State, but I think people are ready to jump on it. But we need an alternative.
we
Yeah.
need
The
an alternative. Yeah.
Well, why don't you tell us more about that when we come back from break? You're in the hot seat on a Media Monday, and this is 95.5 FM, The Heat.
With
Everyone, welcome back to the hot seat on a Media Monday. I'm Ron Klopfanstein. I'm here with Cassandra Harris-Lockwood, and we have a special guest today. Her name is Sarah Klee Hood, and Sarah Klee Hood is running for the Democratic nomination for the 22nd U.S. Congressional District. So, but we have a caller on the line who is a Sarah Klee Hood supporter, and one question that I've been asking people, because I've been working up a story about this too, and I've done some interviews, and I've asked people, particularly progressive, progressives? Like, why are progressives so excited about Sarah Klee Hood? Why are they supporting her? Why are they out there getting signatures for her, promoting her for the primary? So I have a caller who's going to answer all those questions for me, because she is one of those progressives who's out there fighting for Sarah, knocking on doors. Catherine, I believe you are on the line, correct?
Yes,
Are you there?
I am on the line.
Hi, Kathy Mojo.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sarah. Hi.
So, Kathy, why don't you tell us, like, you are a progressive, right?
Yes, I am.
And why are you supporting Sarah Klee Hood?
Well, first of all, here's one of my main reasons too. Sarah's energy, her vision. She's got a vision for what's going to help everyone here in Central New York. And the other thing is we need fresh, new leadership, not the same old that we've had before. So I'm really impressed with Sarah's ideas that are different from everyone else's. I'm impressed, like I said, with her energy level. She's a champion for everyone. It doesn't make a difference, your background, your gender, your race. Sarah's here to support everyone.
I love this. So you are, like, out there knocking on doors, going door to door, talking to your neighbors, talking to friends, talking to people you don't even know about her. What is it that you're hearing from people as you knock on doors and talk to voters who are Democrats? This is a primary election going on right now. When you talk to them, what do they have to say about this race and about Sarah as a candidate?
Well, like I said, what really stands out is when people look at who her opponent is in the primary, and he's an older man,
Mm-hmm.
and Sarah is a young mother who I say has skin in the game. She's got her she's there fighting for families, for making things better for like I said, everyone, but for families especially. And that's what impresses a lot of people when they look at her and they say, yeah, she's going to be here. She's going to be fighting for us for a long time. You know, somebody else who's an older gentleman, where's he going to be in 5 years? Where's he going to be in 10 years? Sarah's in
Well, I
it for
think
the
he's
long
my
haul.
age, so I hope he's going to still be around in 5 years. I'm just getting started. I just got a radio show here. I hope I'm here in 10 years, but I do get your point, though.
Yeah, no, but that's what I mean.
True.
People look at, you know, I'm talking about,
Right.
you know, that's an issue that a lot of people have, that a lot
True,
of our
yes.
politicians are older.
Yep.
And
we
men.
need
Yeah, man.
you-
Cassandra just said
somebody
men.
who's
Yeah, there's a
looking for the
difference between
future.
that thought process.
So, do you feel like Sarah will be able to represent you in your interests, your concerns, your priorities?
Definitely. The policies that she has, especially in climate. And then there's another issue that is important to me, is foreign policy. Sarah's
Okay.
got foreign policy experience. I don't know if she wants to speak to that, but that's very impressive to me. That's something that
Yeah,
to
that's
me
important.
stands out.
It's important in Congress too. So, how are you feeling about this primary? Do you think she's going to pull it out this time and be our nominee?
I am confident Sarah Klee Hood is going to be our congressional nominee.
Well, we love to hear that. So thank you for your call. And Sarah, let me ask you now. I am a teacher, and I was talking during the break about how often I get mailers about John Manning from my union, and now other unions too. We're talking about the old factory jobs and stuff. It does seem as if the unions are supporting your opponent. I wonder if you could speak to that, and what do you have to say if you were to talk directly to someone like me who's in the teachers union or in another union? What would you say to them?
Sure. So I'm not going to let him own that field. We do have union support. I am a proud daughter of labor. My dad's a retired IBW electrician. My mother's a former SEIU nurse. And we have Local 97 IBW behind
Cool.
us. And, you know, I think what I would tell particularly teachers, since you asked, my opponent did his service as a labor leader. He earned their support. I cannot, by any means, can I disparage that, or can I say that, you know, it's simply wrong? No, by no means. He earned it. But I think it's important to understand where the role of education falls within our government.
Yeah.
Education, unfortunately, is not a federal issue. We fund it through the federal government. The federal government gives out the funds to the various states, but when we talk about policy, things that happen inside the classroom, salaries, or classroom sizes. That is all New York State level initiatives. So I think that there's a misconception going around about what can be done at the federal level within the policy sector. And unfortunately, right now, it's ensuring that the schools are funded. Where everything else lies, whether it's salaries, student aids, classroom sizes, student-teacher ratios, what type of services the school wants to deploy or employ, that all lives at the state level.
Yeah.
And so I am a little curious why a 30-year educator would want to go run on a platform for federal level, but to each
Would it
their
really,
own.
wouldn't be applicable what he's
Exactly.
done. He
Maybe
can
we'll
do
get
more
him.
in the
Maybe
state.
we'll get him in here and ask him about it.
Well, that's what we hope to do. We do hope to get him here and ask him about. But I also want to ask you about, this is your former campaign manager from your first
Sure.
time through, and I spilled my soda all over my nose before the show, so I'm going to see if I can see through the Diet Coke stain here, but Ken Warner is his name. He was the former campaign manager, and he said as a political newcomer, she comes within inches of winning, or she came within inches of winning, but now he's not supporting you, he's supporting your opponent. What do you say about that?
I'd say if we're talking about political experience, my opponent has one more year than I do. So that's
Okay.
really not a differentiator. And to be using that sexist language, hidden and dog whistling
Thank you.
towards a woman who's saying it's not her turn, to you, sir, I say sit down. We've had enough of that for the last 200 years. Look where it's gotten us.
Yeah,
Right? No, if I ever waited for somebody to ask me for if I'm ready or if it's my turn,
With your permission. Give them
I
your permission.
probably would still be at my parents' house twiddling my thumbs, not sure what to do. What sort of message does that send? And I'm not concerned about what Ken has to say about me. I know my experience is bar none much more qualified than my opponents. But what does that say to other young women that then get his message?
Yeah.
What is that sending? It's not just to me, it's to our community of young ladies that are trying to figure out their spot in this world, which is right now on fire and not very kind to them. So to him, I say sit down, and he can wait his turn after I'm elected to shake my hand.
And if anything, and I did say this on Twitter, so I probably should say this too because I'm a journalist, that I am a supporter. So like everything, the people listening to this show or watching this on tape should take that into consideration. I want to acknowledge that, because I don't want to come off as I have an agenda here. But I am a supporter of yours, and like one thing, the reason I brought that up is because I did say something about that on Twitter, so I thought I should probably bring it up.
Fair
That
enough.
if anything, really, it's kind of your turn because you did run last time.
I did.
And
We
most
did really
people
well.
had buyer's remorse after you did not get the nomination, and we got the result that most of us kind of thought we were going to get. So it is your turn. So is it your turn? Are you ready?
It's my turn, and to any woman listening right now that is considering getting into politics, it's your turn as well.
Absolutely. I just want to reiterate that these wars that are going on, I never hear a woman's voice. I didn't hear any commentary from women on what should be the next step. No women in power. We need more women in power. Fewer penises, more vaginas.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Well, just
It
from
is
this
Pride Month,
perspective.
my gosh.
I know, but that's okay. You can do with it what you want. But I'm just saying that when we're
Do with it
when-
what I
you know,
want,
but
okay.
because when we have all these restrictions, if a Supreme Court justice
True.
throws up his hands because his wife put up a flag, but he wants to control women's bodies all over the United States, and he can't control his. Get your priorities straight, and let's get some more women in influence and power.
So have you said that to John Mannion, to this former campaign manager? Have you said that? Like, what are you talking about? Hey, it's my turn if I say it's my turn.
I haven't. I hold myself with a certain amount of decorum when I am
Good for you.
public facing, although I'll tell you, being in this hot seat is apparently a different story.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that until I was downstairs, and I said, "How dare he? Who does he think he
She's
is?"
not on Twitter, so Cassandra doesn't know what's going on. I'm on Twitter, so I know everything. I have to fill her in on stuff.
I'm behind
It was a
it.
big controversy of the weekend here that his so it was largely the editor, and then Manny put it into his publications.
He
flyers.
boosted it.
He
As an
boosted
elected
it, yeah.
official, he too himself has a responsibility to ensure that he is uplifting all. So when you, even by sharing that and boosting it, he is re-solidifying the message that he just shared and reboosted, which is women are not equal, they need to be asked to play the game, and that you need to sit down, shut up, and wait. There's a saying for that in the military, and it's called shut up and color. It's where your opinion will be asked when it's asked, or your opinion will be warranted when it's asked. So
And that's what you feel he was doing in this case too. do in this case?
Dominating
Yeah.
male.
By saying
you know,
it's not.
patriarchal response.
Right. So let me ask you now, one of the things I've done a lot of research for, because I interviewed these guys who did this documentary about 9 to 5, they talked a lot about the ERA. And it's something that's always interested me. The ERA came so close to passing, but it needed 38 states to ratify it. It did not make that by 1980, so it failed. Is that something, when you get into Congress, that you would like to see restarted?
Absolutely. Why we're not having that conversation today in the halls of Congress boggles my mind. Why we didn't have it the day after Roe was overturned boggles my mind. June 1st would have been a great day to re-up that, right?
Right.
So
right.
yes, we should be having this conversation. And I understand that there are a lot of people that don't believe that equal rights is a thing. We need to re-elect other people in their place. We truly need to be putting all of our momentum around key seats to win back the House so democracy prevails, Democrats are in power, and we can pass the ERA once and for all.
Now, when you go door to door and you talk to people, what are some of the concerns that people have brought up that maybe surprised you, or that you hadn't thought about, or that gave you a different perspective than you naturally had? You know, you're talking to people, some people who are, well, when you go to, knock on doors, you're talking to people who are Democrats, but there's a lot of range within the Democratic Party, different opinions. Some are, different ages, some are more conservative than others.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you've heard? Maybe from John Manning's supporters, or for people who are have a different kind of point of view that you hadn't thought about, or maybe even a concern that you also share, but you haven't heard someone articulate it yet.
Gosh, my mind just went blank, but I know this happens to me all the time because
What are
I
some
take
things you hear a
notes in
lot
the
about?
field.
Yeah.
So for example, I will ask. I was at a church that had many ministries within it this past weekend, and I was learning about what the various ministries did. But I just started asking the question, "How can I help?" And somebody came up to me and said, "Nobody running for office has ever asked me how can they help." And I was like, well, I recognize that I'm not elected to the federal level yet, but help me understand, how can I help? And it is so hyper local, meaning that they aren't thinking about, at the forefront of their brain, federal policy and initiatives from the federal level. They're thinking about things that happen at their kitchen table or in their community. So one of my biggest takeaways was, we need more ASL interpreters in the community. Not just one that will live at the county level and provide support services for the county executive, but one that will have the opportunity to go to community events, towns, villages, because that is a service they're providing. They should be adequately compensated for it. There just aren't a lot of them, and we need them more, because we are, to your point, Cassandra, we're excluding an entire population when we don't have accessibility services. Similar to the ASL, met with Ingrid and her Latino community here in Utica, and they're needing multilingual interpreters at 911, in the hospital, in the community where everyday Americans show up.
I have to tell you something though. I'm talking to some Italian older people, and talking about English interpretation and Spanish language interpreters and stuff. They're kind of resentful.
Why?
Because when their people came, there were Italians all over the place. They did not have interpreters. And there weren't options for, press, 2 if you want Spanish. It wasn't press 2. They probably wouldn't have telephones, but
We didn't have the pressing back then. You had dial. Those
the
old
dial or
days,
whatever. But I'm just saying, there's a little resentment there. I didn't even think about that. But I have to think that my talking to you about hemp was probably a shocker.
A surprise,
Okay,
yeah.
right?
Yes, that was.
More global, more
Which-
state.
What surprised me most about the conversation was, you recognize that we are struggling to maintain our number one export, which is agriculture, crops.
Yeah.
But you came with a solution.
That's right.
And
I'm
that's
a woman.
amazing.
Don't bring up a problem if
Right.
you ain't gonna fix
Right.
it. Don't bring up a problem if you ain't gonna fix it. I'm a farmer. I
Yeah.
brought community gardening to Utica because I wanted people to be able to have access to the land. And even if they one day grow out of this state, that they'll be able, not state, but this, where they are now, that they could have a garden in their backyard and know how to grow food, how to keep their family fed with organic, food. So, yeah, I think the personal, private, kitchen table stuff is good, but leaders need to think with scope.
Yeah.
We need to think with scope and solutions and challenges that we already have and how to overcome them.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And to that point, your previous point, I'd like to think we evolved. we evolved as a society and recognized that we were failing in terms of interpretation, and
Yes.
that we recognized
Yes,
where
absolutely.
and stuff.
I'm just saying there's a little resentment, but
There's always.
But
I
when you
there's
think,
a-
but these people are not just refugees; these are actual North Americans. This was their country. You know, Spanish was an add-on. You know, when the conquistadors went to Mexico.
Oh, you mean the
Yeah,
the
these are
people?
indigenous
Yeah.
people. These, these are indigenous people. These are natives, Native
Right.
Americans. They really are.
And you'd have a lot of Native Americans in your constituency
I do.
if you do you now and do it. I know that you certainly would in Congress with the Turning Stone and the Oneidas. And have you reached out to them?
Yeah,
and
and
talked
We
to them?
have. They have their own
Right,
political
okay.
interests that
Yeah.
we have a great relationship. They move in the way that they see fit for their nation.
Yep.
DeWitt it's suburbia and commercial land, to be honest.
Right.
So
Right.
it's a lot of we have a lot of mixed housing
Mhm.
throughout. We have apartment buildings to some of the most expensive houses in central New York, all within one school district. And I have to tell you, it is amazing. The kids, everybody is just exposed to so much, and the cultural diversity is the reason that we moved to DeWitt. Why we focused
Nice.
when we return back to the military there, because my girls are growing up and teaching me things that I had no awareness to in my childhood.
Like what?
Oh, all of the we did Kwanzaa one year. We celebrated
really?
it because
Yeah.
my youngest learned about it in kindergarten, and she prepared. And you have to believe her gross motor skills weren't so great, so she cut out everything, and we practiced it. We light the menorah because her friend, she grew up at the JCC. We are
Oh, that's
taking in.
beautiful.
We have Indian friends, and she got to go to a lot of their celebrations, and just coming back with it's an absorbed acceptance. They
Yeah.
don't have to learn to overcome something because it's already ingrained in them to just be welcoming.
Yeah.
And that is what a lot of the kids
Yeah,
are.
it's beautiful.
And you've been a
and-
big supporter of the Pride Month too, and the LGBT community. I've appreciated that. Yeah.
Thank you. Can I share a little story
Please.
from yesterday?
do,
One more
yes.
minute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're almost
We've
out
got
time.
one
but
more
please
minute,
go.
really quick. We were fortunate to speak at a Pride event, and the previous year I talked, because of an experience I had at NBCC last year, I
Yeah.
talked about rural trans safety in our community. And this year, I've been doing Pride for quite a few years now. It's been growing and growing in our area. And while it is bright and beautiful, it is so incredibly bittersweet.
Yeah.
And I just,
'Cause
that's
we
been
have a
weighing
lot of- we
on
have-
my heart.
yeah,
Yes,
right.
is just how do we allow our LGBTQ community to feel safe,
Yeah.
to be who they want to be and who they need to be in their community openly, and that seems to be diminishing as well. And that's
It's
the
certainly
way.
true. I mean, I'm on my Instagram page. I posted stuff about it. I actually have gotten death threats today from that. So it's like the hate, especially since Trump, has gotten much worse. So, Sarah Klee Hood, do you have one last question before we wrap up this show?
I do. My name is Sarah Klee Hood, and I am running to represent you in Congress, NY22. If you are listening, I urge you to vote. Early voting is June 15th through the 23rd, and the primary is June 25th. And one person is not enough. Bring a friend. Bring 3. Make a stance to show that we will not let ourselves be held down by bigotry, by hate, by folks that simply don't understand what Central New Yorkers want and need. And if you have any questions, Ron can hook you up with me. I love
Yes.
or Cassandra. I love talking to folks.
I will put on the show notes all the links to your Facebook page, your social media, your website, all that stuff. That'll be on uticaphoenix.net. I will have that up soon. Sarah Klee Hood, thank you for being our guest today on Hot Seat Media Monday.
Thank you, Sarah.
And thank you to the
Thank
big
you.
boss, Cassandra, who is here to sit in and ask some questions about hemp. Appreciate that. And again, I'll have all the stuff on the show notes. Now I'm going to kick it over to Jay Easy for the Easy Ride Home.